I like the scenario test because I think that's a bigger picture thing which fits perfectly with what we do as a business. And I personally like watching that part of the process because there is right and wrong answers, but there's so many different solutions to what we're asking. Yeah, I enjoy watching what people squirm.
Welcome to the podcast. If recruitment isn't easy, you're doing it wrong. With me today is Chris.
Hello.
And Dean.
Good afternoon.
So you've both done a little bit of recruiting in your time. I've interviewed a few people and been in interviews, believe it or not. I got here eventually.
You had to work for this job.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you're hired.
Oh,
it's unbelievable.
I'd have just let you in.
That's what I said.
We did. He's just been turning up ever since.
But what's the secret to hiring great people?
This is a massive clickbait spoiler now because there isn't one. And I think people think you can just hire great people every time, but you can't. The reality is for every 3 people on average that you hire, you're probably going to get one person who's fantastic, one person who is average but could develop into someone fantastic, and one that's below average, perhaps a poor performer. And that's completely normal. A lot of businesses get confused and try to hire fantastic people every single time, and it just does not work. Because no matter whether you have a 5-stage interview and you do the psychometric tests and you do all these different things and the testing and some on the job stuff, you're just not going to see the real side of the candidate until they're actually in the post. So yes, those things will help give you a marginal gain, but the reality is that you're still sometimes going to make mistakes, and that can be really tough. But that's just what recruitment is like. I think you just got to do the best you can to protect yourself from those kind of issues.
Yeah, you say there's a good chance that you don't know who the person is until they get in the role, but there's also a little bit of warm-up time as well that they may take to get used to being in the role and get used to being in a new situation as well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I guess every business that you work in is going to be different. I think the thing is as well, just because someone's been a top performer in another business doesn't mean that they'll be a top performer in your business. Because in some organizations, the culture is perhaps more supportive of those individuals' character traits. And they can elevate someone who might be average into being a top performer. But if they come somewhere where the culture is different, then actually where they could have been a top performer in the previous business because they had a right culture mix for them. And it might not be that it's a case of a good or bad culture. It's just that one culture was more supportive of that individual than another. And you might find actually they just don't perform the same when they come to work in your organization. That's not always the case, but I think sometimes that might be the case with hiring people.
Do you have anything to say on the matter?
I concur. I think he's hit the nail on the head a bit. It's can be so hit or miss. I like to think I've kind of got a good read on people, which can be I think is the most important part of it. We'll get into it. Obviously, we're talking about recruiting tech people. But yeah, getting the right recruitment is easy, right? Finding the right person is so much harder. You can go out and hire somebody these days in minutes, but are they going to be the right person? Chris says 1 in 3.
Do you think that 1 in 3 is fair?
Is that 1 in 3 of the people that have gotten past your layers of?
Yeah. It's people actually on average, not to say because we were talking before we started recording, in the team of 3, and I don't think it's quite like that. It's more an average. If you did 3 times that and had 9, there could potentially be 3 people who, and it might not be that they're so bad that you need to do something so that they no longer work in the business, but the bottom 3, it might not be that that's the case, but they're just probably not performing as well as they really aren't to be for working in the business. Do you think that's fair? I mean, it's this is going to come across as really harsh, but I think some organizations tolerate people being like not that good.
I can see that happening. Yeah.
There's so many aspects that you could drill into of what might make it like you were saying, is the environment not what they used to? Is the person they're working for not what they used to? Is the person who recruited them in the first place not picked up on stuff that shouldn't have been, that might have been a red flag to somebody else while recruiting them? Is the person, for us in the tech bit that I've always say is, for me, there's a very fine line of where I want people to be. Like, I don't want somebody to come in who, sometimes I might want somebody to come in who knows absolutely everything. But then I always think, if they already know everything, how, are they going to be happy about getting up and coming to work for us every day? Like, is it going to be intriguing enough, interested enough, if they already know everything? Whereas somebody who's coming in and learning every day and loves what they're doing while doing it, I like that mix of somebody. But then to get that mix, you need the person who, when you teach something, I like people who, when I tell them something or show them something, they don't come and ask the same thing tomorrow or the day after.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different things to a person and them fitting in to a job that, you're never going to get. It's rare that you get the perfect blend of absolutely everything.
So I suppose if we talk about our recruitment process and like what we've done, do you want to walk us through what we've been doing on the technical side for recruitment?
So I've been going through the same process that Chris used to get me in. Bit of an informal chat to begin with, kind of getting their background, getting them to run through their CV, previous experience, what they've done, what they kind of want to be doing, what they're interested in. Couple of technical questions thrown in early doors just to kind of gauge where they're at with that. And then it's harder on the phone to pick up whether somebody knows or doesn't know what they're talking about.
It's easier to bullshit.
Yeah. And throw in buzzwords off their CV.
Does that include a sort of a video call, as well?
No, I've not done video calls yet. I'm not against them. So it might be something that
I think like that body language and like some of the minutiae of like the way people behave, like it's quite hard to pick up on video call for an interview perspective. And that's not to say I'm sat there studying someone's body language when I'm interviewing, because I really don't. But I guess the sort of the like
subconsciously.
Yeah, maybe I don't feel like I'm getting to know the person properly.
Yeah,
like,
there's not a big jump, like the jump from doing a phone call to a video call when they're sat in their comfortable environment to them being in our environment, in our room, and put under our pressure is a lot. It's a much bigger jump. So it's easier to, they kind of come out there, they have to come out of their shell a little bit, and but then.
So you mentioned the informal chat. Like, what at that point in terms of technical screening are we doing, if any? So
I like to drill in a bit more to the CVs, especially, some people have it on there. And I like to think my CV is okay. It got me to here. But I don't just like listing stuff on my CV of what I'm good at. I like to put examples in there of what I've actually done with the skills of a particular product or whatever. So if I like to talk about that with people as well. So I like to know what they've worked on in, like, obviously VMware is a big one. Like people to at least have had a little bit of exposure to or knowledge of, not just what knowledge they've got of it, but how they've used it and why and when, and not just for VMware but for other things, and how they've, I guess, how they got to where they are with that particular piece of
Just
technology is what.
demonstrating knowledge,
I like to
essentially.
ask. Yeah, and not just be like, oh, I see you've got a bullet point that says VMware on your CV. Like I like to drill into it and figure out what it is they actually.
Yeah, like did you?
Yeah.
I suppose it's listening for like those prompts that indicate that actually you've got someone who like knows the ins and outs and perhaps was quite close to it. Because we know from experience, like some people will say, "Oh, well, I've built an environment of Hyper-V," and actually it transpires that they just installed the role, and actually there wasn't really any setup involved, and they've made it out to be something perhaps more than it is on the CV.
Yeah.
Whereas we,
That's the same for installing VMware. It's a
yeah,
USB stick, and if I give you a bare bones metal box and a USB stick, I reckon you'd figure it out. Might take you a day.
no, I reckon Mike will get it done in a few hours.
Do you reckon?
Easy. Yeah, absolutely.
I know it's download things from the
There you
internet.
go. You see, that's can Google it.
You don't have to do that, but I've already put it on a USB stick for you. It's already
Fantastic.
there, ready to go. So just
Install. Click the left mouse button.
Well, there might be a small issue with that.
there's not. Don't quite get a mouse at that point. If you do, you probably pressed the wrong key, and you're in the BIOS and you're breaking stuff. But yeah, you drill down at that because a lot of people have it listed, and we've had it again, like Chris said, where I've deployed multiple like vCenter environments, and I've done this. You've installed a few hosts, and installed vCenter and brought the hosts into vCenter.
Yeah.
That's the very
I know.
basics of it. So yeah, I like to really get kind of questions going about why, or well, how and why they use it, and listen for the tells and dig into where they mention where they use buzzwords. Question them more on them.
Just to really drill into that sort of understanding technically, and at that point, are you technically scoring them in any way on those initial calls, or is it very much like it's a gut feel really with a view to a second stage?
Yeah, I don't really have a scoring system as such, but I kind of got
a mental checklist.
We actually used to. We used to do that first call. We'd grade some stuff, but I think a lot of that is best done over the face-to-face piece anyway.
People applying for a job that's kind of seen as let's say as a sideways step would be a flag straight away for me. Mm-hmm. So I'd question that to begin with. If somebody was a support analyst and they were applying for a job for a support analyst, I'd be like, well, why? But then the other side of that, where they're not, and they're going for the infrastructure, more of an infrastructure role, let's say, which is a kind of a general next step in our world. There's got to be that leniency of there might be what we were saying before. There might be aware of VMware and how it all works and how it all brings stuff together, depending on where they've come from. There might be, I came from a role. Well, a few years ago, I was in a role as a support analyst on a support desk where I knew what all this stuff was, but because of the role and the environment, I didn't really have access to any of it. That wasn't within my remit, but I knew it enough to go to the next place and sell myself and get to that point. So it's figuring that out. But yeah, I don't think I like to bring probably more than not if I've picked up from something on their CV and had a call with them. I think generally for me seems to go down the route of I want to bring them in for a second stage because I get to know the person side more. And like I said, if it's a very visible step forward in their career for them, and they're not somebody who knows everything that you need them to know.
I'm promoting you.
I get to know that person side of things of what I was saying earlier. Do they seem to be the type of person who picks stuff up? They do. Do they do? You can ask all the other questions like we like to ask them what they do for outside of IT, but to do with IT isn't like, do they listen to podcasts? I know Chris asked that one. What do they do for self-study? Like any kind of things outside of that, which...
So if you think, so we use a recruiter and they post a job, they potentially, let's say they get 100, 150 applications for a role. they filter those as best they can and perhaps end up with, let's say, I don't know, I'd say probably like 10 CVs maybe out of that. If you got a pile of 10 CVs from a recruiter, how many do you think you'd progress to face-to-face out of that?
No more than half.
No more than half. I just think it's lower than that, perhaps, like maybe as few as 3 out of like 10, a shortlist of 10. Maybe even 2. Like it's... Because it's a lot of... I personally feel like there's a lot of talent in the market. Well, there's a lot of candidates in the market. And actually, out of those candidates, there's a very, very limited number that are right for the role that we are advertising. Because it's really hands-on, like it's behind the curtain, as we sort of have said before. It's you've got to play with all the tech that's behind the scenes, and you've got to know it, or be able to know it, and be able to learn it. And I think that for me is like what thins that pool down quite significantly. And I think the more keywords you have and the more things you're looking for, the smaller and smaller that talent pool gets.
Yeah.
So when we bring them in for the face-to-face interview, what does that sort of process look like if we're hiring for an infrastructure engineer? What components of that do you think are delivering beyond marginal gains for our recruitment process?
So, well, the next part of the process, the face-to-face, we always start with scenario-based questions. So we have I'll not give too much information away in case any potential candidates are listening.
Yep.
But we have basically a scenario where a customer's got X amount of locations and looking to move stuff to cloud. And basically we want them to we let them do a little whiteboard session, draw out, an architecture, a network, kind of infrastructure build, how they would best build it from what they've read. It's only a couple of paragraphs worth of information, but to see how well they take in the information from that, and how well they're able to portray their ideas, and obviously whether their ideas are decent or not.
Yeah.
Because that's, although it feels harsh when you get somebody in and they might not be, like I said, they might have come from a role where they're just doing support and they've never had to think about anything like that. But the right type of person that we particularly will be looking for is somebody who's gone and maybe done that kind of research, and at least researched us enough to know that that's kind of what we do. I guess all that.
Yeah, I suppose
bigger
for
picture
that,
is on our website. That's what we do. We build environments for customers. And
do you know what's so strange about that first part of that test? Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, because we will brief them and say, like, here's the piece of paper with the scenario on that we'd like you to talk about or draw. You've got 15, 20 minutes. And I always say to the candidates, look, please, if you know a particular piece of technology, please stick to what you know. And do it all on stuff that you're comfortable talking about. So, if they know Azure, do it in Azure. If they know Hyper-V, do it in Hyper-V. If they know VMware, do it in VMware. I can't tell you how many times I'll be like, so I'll pick up on stuff like in the design that perhaps isn't quite right, and ask the candidate their opinion, like why they think that might be the right type of solution. And often they'll be like, I don't know. And I'll say, well, have you used this technology before? Oh, no, never used it. And I just don't like when they're, there's in that scenario test, I think we'd much rather like you kept it simple in a world that you understood and you could explain it.
Yeah. And
because we want to just see that you can translate that brief into a solution, no matter how you put it together.
Yeah. If somebody could, I could stand there and draw like a whole thing using 10 components. If they do it with 4, but they know them 4 very well and are not trying to oversell themselves, it comes across better than them, like you said, being like, oh no, I've just heard the buzzword.
Yeah.
I'll put it in here that I don't really understand. Or
I think the one thing that we've done, which has been quite good for us actually, is like the standardized technical test. So irrelevant of candidate level, whether we're recruiting for what is effectively quite a junior role or a senior, or like having a bunch of like what are quite difficult questions for the majority of candidates. Because I think it really shows how you can think under and problem solve under pressure. And what we're sort of looking for there as well is someone that can say, I think I know what the answer is. I think it might be this, but I'm not 100%. But ultimately, we don't want someone that's going to bullshit us, because it's at that point we need to make sure they're going to put their hand up, and if they were employed, and 3 months later they come across a situation where like, I don't know anything about this, and they perceive that it might have some sort of risk, and actually for them to go, you know what, hey, can someone help me with this because I'm stuck. We don't want them going off and pretending they know it and actually causing us more damage.
Yeah, because that like the scenario test, I was saying, you get, it's a couple of paragraphs worth of text on a piece of paper, and they've got to go and put something on a whiteboard. It's just another form of picking up the phone, somebody spitting a couple of paragraphs worth of issues at you, and you've got to then find your way to a resolution, which is a big part of our job. We look after our customers and their issues. So, although it's done in a bit more of a stressful manner, with a few sets of beady eyes watching them, it's the same principle of what we're trying to. Like I said, and even with the technical questions that we have, that's the next stage. We're not done on technical questioning yet.
Yeah.
It's the same. Like we have some in there that I didn't get all of them right, but I'm just to be like, I've never used that before. So, but I'm then happy enough that I'm not the person that I said earlier. I don't want to recruit the person who knows absolutely everything anyway, because they're going to come in and learn nothing. They're going to get 3 months down the road and go, need fun this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think obviously you touched on it there about the final stage of the technical interview process, because you sort of got your scenario, your technical questions of all different manners, and then we get in sort of a bit the general like non-IT, what that's to do outside of work and hobbies, interests, podcasts, etc. Just trying to like make sure that they're a good fit for the team and that they'll fit in and integrate well. But then also that last piece, which is it's only something we started doing like the last 6 months. But can you tell us about the sort of the final stage of the interview?
Oh, the bit that I done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
Because we only put that in recently. You see, like.
Yeah, confused them because we've never actually done it. We've not done it with anyone else since.
Because we haven't done it anyone since, have we? But that lab is. So, for example, like when we hired Whiskey, we had to do a custom lab just for him. But I actually think that the lab makes a massive difference in the recruitment process. I'll tell you why, because we interviewed a couple of candidates, this going back quite some time, like probably in the last probably 6 months before we spoke to you, during our last round of recruitment. And some people had that they knew VMware inside out on their CV and that they were experts, and they certainly, like when we were talking to them, came across really knowledgeable. But I didn't really get into any of the detail to test any of that knowledge. It was all very high level. And then when they came in and took the actual VMware practical with us, which is a couple of scenarios, and that the questions are designed to trip people up. Like we purposely, it says do one thing, and actually we know you're going to run into an error when you do that, and we're looking to see how you troubleshoot that. And some of them are simple, some of them are not so simple, and you might need to have come across them previously to be able to get them right. But for me, that's the amount of people that think it's a fantastic interview. Yeah, okay, some of the technical questions I didn't get quite right, but actually we were pleased with how they handled the ones they didn't know the answers to. When it gets to the technical test, bear in mind they've got VMware Expert written on their CV, and they can't answer some of which can be quite simple questions about VMware when they're actually faced with a hands-on practical lab. But that should be their element, because if they're an expert, they should live in that console all day long and know how to do these simple tasks.
Yeah, see, that can be, I don't know the exact word, but like exam mentality kind of. Yeah. Anyone can go and do 6 months worth of watching videos and reading books and doing practice tests until you've memorized all the answers and go get a VCP. Real world, when the proverbial hits the fan, and knowing where you have to look and to start troubleshooting stuff is completely different to just learning text and being able to, and the question part of it and coming in and designing something fits into that part of it very well. If they've read a book for the last 6 months about how VMware works, they should be able to come in and talk about VMware.
Do you know what I think some of that is? It's muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's like when you do it every day for your job, you just know instinctively like where certain, even if like we didn't perhaps quite know where a certain setting was, we'd have a pretty good idea which submenu it would be in because it's that muscle memory of using the console every day.
Yeah, I think so. What your question? The bit I remember of it, I remember it being stressful.
Really?
Yeah.
That bad?
Well,
Did we do it remotely?
You're crap at reading people over video calls. So
that's why I literally didn't
Yeah.
pick up on that.
Yeah, I breezed through it.
Yeah.
But it's the steps. It's not just, some of the questions are not just kind of A to B. There's an A, B, C, and a D. You've got to know where you're going to get the next part of the answer.
Yeah.
Whereas one of them is spoiler alert. Is like this VM is powered off. Please power it on. And the look on his face when he asked me to do that, I was like, right, that's not going to be as simple as you've just.
Yeah, because when it's like power it on, is this guy for real? How simple is this job? And I always smile because like that question, it just sounds like it's going to be so easy, but of course, like it's not really a proper technical test. If all you have to do is power a virtual machine on, that's like first line stuff, and then it comes with a big error, and you have to go and debug why it's got an error. And that's part of the technical. And in fact, I see a lot of the questions quite like that. Like, this thing happens. Turn the VM off, and then you can't turn the VM off for some reason.
Yeah, there was
about 4 or 5, wasn't there?
Yeah, the lab has a powered on VM and a powered off VM.
Yeah.
And I think there's something wrong with one of the VM keys on one of them. We're gonna have to change it after this.
We'll have to change it now. Yeah.
We'll change it when we find somebody to put through at that stage.
So do you, So do you think of that sort of second stage? I was like, we talk about the theory of like marginal gains, like where you get like the 1 or 2% performance improvement of like a process or like a component of the organization. Do you think that, like, what do you think has the biggest impact in terms of that? If you had to rank them during that face-to-face, where are we getting the biggest bang for our buck, the biggest win in percentage terms?
Which part of the process?
Yeah, which part of the process is adding the most value to our recruitment screening?
I like the scenario test because I think being able to just that's a bigger picture thing which fits perfectly with what we do as a business.
Yeah.
And I personally like watching that side of that part of the process because there is right and wrong answers, but there's so many different solutions to what we're asking.
Yeah.
And I enjoy watching what like people squirm and
we've had some really good ones for that. I wish I could say, but we haven't. Yeah, that scenario test, like the amount of times we've seen some really awful designs. Like, spoiler alert, missing all of the components that we require in the overview.
Yeah.
Like not accounting for simple bits that are missing. And that can kind of be like one thing there is like, is that an indicator of limited attention to detail, which it could be potentially.
Yeah, the one thing that always stands out for me is I'm not a networking genius, but I know enough about networking to understand how infrastructure hangs together because you know all you need to know about how servers work and whatnot, but the underlying how everything works from the networking side of things, and that's the bit that I look for more on the thing because we've had some where they'll just draw a cloud icon. I'm going to put it in the cloud, and they'll just have a line drawn to another place, like a physical on-site, and I'm like, what is that line? They're like, oh, it's just a connection.
That's not how it works then. because
It's
I've
more.
been
It's
drawing
more.
lines
It's,
to
yeah,
clouds the whole time I've been there.
yeah. It's a little bit more than a line
Hold on.
sometimes.
You've inserted characters into things with lines in. Eating
Sometimes
other lines.
It's three
Lines.
arced lines.
Eating other lines.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's understanding that bit. Can you remember mine? You should have took a picture. It was.
I should say it was a Mona Lisa. It was a work of art. I've not seen anything like it since, because there's been no interviews since.
Nobody's gotten that far.
No one's got that far. Yeah, Dean screened them all. Well, that's true, actually. I mean, last time we had a bunch of CVs that got past the recruiter, probably over 100 applications for that role. You got 7 or 8 to screen after that, and actually screened them down to, I think, 1, and then that person no-showed.
Yeah, we've had quite a few through. We did have a batch of like 10, I think, CVs, and one of them I picked out.
So,
and he failed the first part of what would have been his new job and didn't answer the phone.
oh dear. So, I mean, that's an interesting kind of segue into like recruitment and sort of the current pitfalls that, I mean, we've got a recruitment challenge at the moment. I think every business to a certain extent struggles with recruitment in terms of finding great people. But I feel like over the past 6 months, it's got worse than it's ever been. And there's this huge thing in America at the moment, which is called the Great Resignation. And it's about a large number of people that have realized that they like home working or flexible working or more time with family, whatever it might be. And there's been a significant number of people that just resigned from employment to go and start their own business. And when it comes to like here, for example, on the current issue we see, which is some of it I think is like velocity, like it's candidates entering the market, leaving very, very quickly. I think perhaps it's concerns around COVID. Maybe I'm not really sure. I mean, what do you think is impacting the recruitment market at the moment in technology, and in particular in the north of England?
On the technology side of things, I think we touched on it in another episode about did we, or was it just a chat? I don't know. It was in here about the
home working thing.
Well, home working, and then if they're not home working, they want their tech office to have a slide and a ball pit and free food.
Yeah.
And
Coming in
everything
pajamas.
everything that's on.
Right, scrub ball pit, scrub slide, cancel them.
Yeah.
Turns out we don't need them.
All right.
I mean, I'd like one.
Oh, okay. Cancel that. Tick.
Bouncy castle play.
We're currently sat upstairs, and to get downstairs, it would be a lot easier if we had a slide.
Fireman's pole.
Fireman's pole, yeah.
Wow, this place is great.
Oh, nah.
Bit cringy.
Just, nah.
Not during COVID anyway, no.
No, because you'd have that, like, that awful sound of someone, like, coming down a pole really slowly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and do it, but...
Don't they just put that in films? They add that sound on. I don't think it
Do
really
they not add...
happens.
You're the media person. Do they not add every sound to a film?
Pretty much.
And most of them shot in
computers
silence.
make noises in films, and they don't in real life. Not really.
Some keyboards in era.
Mind blown.
Right.
Yeah. Sure, there's like loads of stuff that's
To
actually
be fair,
shot in
Whiskey's
silence,
keyboard is quite loud.
and they add in pretty much every sound.
Yeah, they do. I think
That
there's a
isn't, that isn't dialogue.
whole divisions down to that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, but anyway, I think that's a big thing. Obviously, working from home has just took over because people are, I reckon, high out of 10s, like with like the 7s, 8s, even 9 out of 10s are, why am I going to an office, especially in the tech world, and
When
especially in...
When you say 7 and 8s, is that a candidate score, or is that percentile?
Yeah, like number of people who...
Yeah. So
I was doing it. So when I was scouring the market or being headhunted by the market, which sounds better, I was...
we'll leave one of those in.
Yeah, I was... yeah, you can choose. I begged for this job. I was so adamant that I wanted to work from home because I've been working from home for 2.5 years or whatever, like from before COVID.
Yeah.
I was doing maybe 3, sometimes 4 days a week from home, building different working from home environments. So I just found it easier, but very relaxed business where I came from on that side of things. So that was good. And was so set in my mind that what for my particular role, knowing that probably where I'm applying for isn't going to have their IT in the cupboard. It was going to be in a data center somewhere. What difference does it make if I'm sat here or at home or in Starbucks or McDonald's? So I was so like, I'm not traveling 50 miles a day to get into an office when I could do absolutely everything from the comfort of my own home. And then this gem of a job came along.
Thanks, Dean.
Had
Respect.
a discussion about it with our recruiter. And I mean, location-wise, obviously, I was very lucky, which was a big thing for me. So as soon as I found out it was 5 days in the office, location-wise, if this was 50 miles away, probably wouldn't have bothered, because that's a big thing. No one wants to add 2 hours onto the day for travelling.
So I suppose you're saying there is that effectively the no home working thing probably is affecting our candidate pool. Is that fair to say?
I would say it definitely is. There's still, I think there's still plenty of candidates out there, but yeah, I think it is, but it's not something I agree with why we're doing it.
Yeah,
and I'm happy to be 5 days a week. But yeah, I mean, for me, it flipped instantly when I knew about the job and the company and what I was, potentially going to be doing. It was just like, actually, when I took a step back and thought about it, personal level, I hated working at home full time because I was in a very siloed role, and I love being in here and talking to people and interacting with humans, which anyone who knows me who might listen to this on a personal level will probably be like, what? He doesn't interact with humans. I've known him for 30 years and he hates humans. That's why he works in IT.
So do you think that, we talk about obviously the impact that things have to our addressable market in terms of candidates and finding the right people. I mean, one thing I've seen is salary banding. I think back to 5-7 years ago when you could recruit, 18K a year and get some people that you can really develop and turn into fantastic members of the team. And then even your sort of experienced engineers would be 32, 34K would be quite top end for some maybe even some second line and third line type engineers. And now we can be 1.5 times that, 2 times that in some cases. And what do you think is driving the significant increase in salary? Is it a shortage of good talent perhaps, or is it this sort of fabled northern powerhouse?
I think it could have, the working from home thing could have a decent impact on it. Yeah. Because
in driving it down or up?
Up. We spoke about the other day how companies closing offices.
Yeah.
You're knocking an instant, decent sized office in a decent location. You're knocking £500,000 off your off your expenses for a company. So if you want to spend it somewhere, just put it into your people and be able to offer that thing. If you're offering the working from home for that reason, you've got the money in the pot to be able to offer more, and you're not having to all the other stuff of if it was a working from home job, I'd have said, look, don't send me anything. I'm a nerdy nerd. I've got a complete setup at home already. Give me my VPN login details and I'm on.
Yeah.
I don't need any equipment. So that'll be a small thing.
But we've seen the proliferation of salaries has been happening for years, the last 2 years. It's not. I think COVID has accelerated. I think perhaps I see it as more so. There's a limit of the actual. There's a lot of candidates, but there's a limitation of talent. And I think some of that is because the newer generation, as I keep always saying, don't see behind the curtain. And the people we want need to know everything that goes into it. And perhaps that younger generation who've been in a job for 1 or 2 years where it's running on public cloud, they don't know how it all works.
Yeah. And the people who do, probably also have the knack to know what the current market is doing. And there's,
and demand. Do you
there
think
is-
demand higher?
yeah, there is so much. There's so many places out there that are offering the correct, what is the correct salary banding for that role. But what I'm seeing is the correct based on pre-COVID, let's say.
Yeah.
But there is so many who are, really going for the right people by offering, and they're offering the right money, but their recruitment process might be
Is
just as, they want the right person for that money, whereas we're seeing we're not getting them people in because they're attracted by that number to begin with.
so because I mean, like we speak of this all the time, and like we reset our expectations in terms of salary banding, did our market research, and kind of set them, advertised the job, walked away. And I feel like the point's coming, and this is we're talking about 2 months later, when maybe those bands need revising again because it's already shifted. Do you think that's fair to say? In the last 2 or 3 months, we've already seen an increase in baseline salaries for different technical roles that we recruit for.
Yeah, because it's probably an ongoing thing, isn't it? It's happening in loads of different markets. You've got X amount of companies offering, let's call them silly salaries.
Yeah.
You get a lot more people coming out of or willing to come out of their current jobs looking for these salaries. So you've got a lot more people in the pool to pick from. And they're being passed. As long as there's still a hint of these silly salaries in the pool, other companies are going to have to compete to get these people who are now looking for roles. And then it's going to be probably an ongoing cycle of there's silly salaries. I'm leaving my job to go and get one of them.
Yeah. And those salaries are never really going to come down again, are they?
No, it'll be difficult.
It'll be inflation that eventually rises to meet them.
Yeah, it'll be difficult to ever.
How's
it going to stop it unless there's everyone comes together, which has never happened in the history of the planet Earth.
See, the issues that we have as a business is a lot of the prices that we give to our customers were set 5 years ago. Back when, I'll be honest with you, we were probably paying 25 to 30% less per engineer, if not probably more. But it's kind of and we touched on it briefly before, but do you think it's possible for what we do what weighting should we give to hiring people that we develop? How important is that? Do you think we should be putting more attention into developing? I mean, I think we tried it, and it's fair to say it didn't really work that well, but I don't think we had really good foundational people in the business back then. Are we at a point now where we've got a strong foundational team? Could we?
I would love to recruit graduates or apprentices, because they're in that mindset already of they want the learning, and they're that person who learns. I'm not an educational learner. I like to learn on the job.
Yeah, I'm the same.
But I don't rate there's no university courses on
Windows XP.
There's no courses on hyperconverged infrastructure. See our latest episode.
Yeah.
They're not learning that.
No, that's true. No.
Devs are coming out of university after doing what they do, the computer science courses and stuff, and I don't know the ins and outs of them. I've never done a computer science degree, but I'm assuming theirs is a little bit more leaning towards what they're going to be doing. But
is there some element of that technology, at least in your sector, sort of moves on so fast that you couldn't go to university and learn hyperconvergence, because by the time you come out of university, it's gone.
Probably could learn a foundation.
There's a lot of it that sticks. Networking's never going to. Well,
no.
You see,
the foundation, the core of it, how it, the little bits of kit on either side might change, or the protocols, but how it all works is going to be around for a long time.
Yeah.
In terms of the basics of it, you could learn all that, which they might do if there's a very particular course somewhere, but then it's a very small pool of graduates or apprentices that we're looking for, and I think that's
So
if they were being taught the right thing. This isn't on my CV, so I'm allowed to say it. I got 2 Fs in IT at school because I was sat at home, when my internet went down or it was slow or my PC was running slow. I was troubleshooting it myself. I was building my own computers. I was doing stuff. Then I was going to school and they're like, this is how you use Microsoft Word.
yeah, it's just not engaging.
This is not keeping me interested. It's not teaching me anything I'll need to know for an actual job.
So do you think that the curriculum probably needs to develop to support people going into employment? But then I guess the issue then is the certification component becomes more critical because if the curriculum is now supportive, how do you quickly ascertain if a potential employee has got what you're looking for?
I'd like to go into a school and sit in an IT lesson and see what's actually being.
I remember they were so boring.
Yeah.
I think I just learnt about how to use Word and
PowerPoint. So for me, like when I went to college, I was like really excited because the college course had a CCNA as part of it and was just sold as like some form of advanced IT. I thought I'm going to really get to know technology here. And actually, it turned into just more Word and PowerPoint and Publisher.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really what I wanted. I wanted to learn technology. But I think technology is something you need to learn by doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why apprenticeships are so good for technology.
I did enough in my... I knew enough self-taught stuff to... I left college after a year and a half of doing IT. And I went and got a job on like a service desk and started working my way through. And people came out of college that I went to college with 3 or 4 years later who were at like... You'd built up to degree level, I think they were at. I got them interviews at where I currently was because it was if somebody internally hands in your CV, you instantly get an interview. And not one of them got through the technical test. So they'd done all the studying. I'd went and got a job after a year and a half based on what I kind of was able to put down and buzzwords and actually be able to speak about them.
Yep.
And again, it was for an entry level kind of support role, which I got lucky on my CV. I think I've got a lot of name drops on there. But yeah, I went and got a job and got in there, and I don't think I can probably think of 5 people off the top of my head that I still know from that college course, and I know not one of them are working in IT.
So mine, I left after 2 weeks because I did the high school. I did like an advanced.
You give it a real shot.
Yeah, I really tried. Yeah, because high school we did IT, like it's some sort of advanced IT, and it was Word, PowerPoint, and I guess it taught some foundational stuff, but it wasn't really that interesting. And then I thought, right, I'm gonna get the really interesting stuff now at college. Get to college, do 2 weeks, quickly realise that it's a repeat of high school. And now there was some stuff in that course, like the Cisco CCNA, and perhaps some other things that we might have learned, like the fundamentals of programming, perhaps, is like I think was one component of it. But that didn't really interest me because I liked infrastructure-y stuff, not dev. That was just like what I was interested in. And it was on that I decided to leave. But when I left, I was like, right, I'll get an apprenticeship. I'll get an apprenticeship in IT. Like back then, apprenticeships in IT were almost non-existent. They had this like training academy somewhere in Salford.
It's all like data, like IT, but it'd be like data processing.
Guess what it was?
Admin.
It was
stuff.
working on vending machines that went into laundrettes. I went to a job interview, get there, and like, well, what's the role involved? Well, you're working on these machines that run Windows, and you're preparing them and like fixing them. What do? Oh, well, part of vending machines in like laundrettes and hair salons and stuff. It's like it's not really
like
IT.
The touchscreen aspect of the bit behind that.
I think so. Yeah, like it wasn't.
It'd be decent if you got free access to the machines.
So in terms of recruitment, do you think that businesses should be, like specifically technology businesses, looking for technology employees? Do you think they should be doing recruitment in-house or using an agency or a bit of both? What should they be focusing on to find the right candidates?
I've actually noticed at least coming up into this role, I started using LinkedIn a lot more for like finding roles, and you can be a bit more direct with LinkedIn. Although, I think even this role I've found for an agency, and a lot of agencies go through LinkedIn now. But I think LinkedIn is a powerful tool for companies looking to hire direct, potentially.
It's in the company alone, though, isn't it? Like, I don't think I personally don't have enough time to sift through CVs that get sent directly to me. Please don't make me do it.
So you think that the recruiter component that sifts the CVs, that takes that out, is worth it?
If you pick the right one, you get there's specific recruitment companies that work in technology and kind of know what they're looking for themselves.
So if you think about the recruitment percentage, which can be anything from like 15 to 20%, let's say it's the arbitrary worst case 20%, and we're recruiting for a role at 25k. So we've got a $5,000 recruitment fee. Can we justify that recruitment fee by using the recruiter?
In very simple terms, I do not like recruitment fees.
Okay.
I mean, everyone's got to make a living. They're doing, they're part of the job. But I've never seen it from the other side. I've never been a recruiter, so I don't know what goes into it. But from the other side, it will always be like, well, you've placed a job role, somebody sent you a CV, you've looked at it and thought, yeah, that could be good enough, and you've passed it on.
See,
I know there's more.
There's an issue with recruitment, which is the speculative nature of roles. So if you're a recruiter on the other side of the table, because I look at it and think, well, $5,000, wow, that's, for a 25k salary, that's a massive amount. Like $5,000, surely like that's the basic for a month of the recruiter plus possibly a portion of the commission payment for that role. Like we are definitely probably overpaying at $5,000 to recruit somebody. And mileage may vary in terms of getting a lower percentage on the commission, or on the payment for the employee. But I think the issue is that the reason that we're getting charged so much is because part of that recruiter's work is speculative. So an employer says, I have 5 roles, please go and find me someone. They perhaps don't take that exclusive, don't take a down payment. They're now effectively at that point working on 5 roles for free. But that employer could bin 3 of those roles, only award one of their candidates from that particular recruiter for one of them, and they could place the other one. So there's a huge portion of their work that effectively everyone else is paying for. It's speculative for them to get business.
Yeah, it's a harsh role, isn't it? Because how much is in terms of work, has our recruiter done for us over the last, 3 months since I've been here?
Probably a lot.
And we've not.
Probably like sifting. I imagine they've sifted probably over 200 CVs.
And unfortunately, we've not recruited anyone, so the fee
yeah.
is non-existent yet.
Yeah. Do you think there'll be a transition to more hybrid where there's an element of like a recruiter component, but we're perhaps seeing more of the CVs? So we're not seeing the full 150 applications or whatever it might be. We're maybe seeing a subset of those, maybe 15, 20.
Yeah, maybe I was talking about technology, maybe there's a better way of doing something, more automation, possibly somewhere that, can kind of, we're living in an AI world, aren't we? Just about. Yeah. Is there something that can do that part of it to take either making internal recruitment a little bit easier, taking a little bit of the non-paying work off a recruiter and making it a little bit more easier for them. They can then go out and kind of work with more people because a lot of their stuff is automated. So maybe there's a technology that makes the whole thing easier. Maybe people might be doing that and I just don't know about it because I don't work in recruitment. But
I've toyed with the idea of perhaps using part of that recruitment fee as a welcome bonus. So like, instead of, is there a way that we could pay half the fee or a quarter of the fee and enable us to have a signing on bonus for candidates to make us an attractive option at the point of offer? Because I'd love to be able to do something like that. And
is there a retraction on that if they leave
I think they'd have to be, yeah. Like it's.
There have to be.
I think that's reasonable because if it was a sizable amount of money, I think it's only fair that if someone then, went on to leave within.
I know I've only been here
months.
4 hours, but I just don't think this is for me anymore.
Yeah. Thanks for the money. I've already taken the other job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as the notification from his banking app pings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we hope you found this episode useful. We got into the nuts and bolts of our recruitment process, the things that we've tried and kind of failed on, and giving you a little sort of insight for what's worked for us. If you could leave a rating and a comment, that really helps us out in terms of getting the show in front of more people. This has been Experts in Polo Shirts Does Recruitment. Thanks for tuning in from myself, Chris Piggott, Dean,
Thank you.
and Michael.
Thank you.